Hey guys, welcome back to Sparkman Homestead. My name is Krista. As you can see, I am in my warm gear. We are outside. I want to show you what we got last night. We got some beautiful, beautiful snow. Mint can definitely hang with snow. Well, I guess not all of it. Some of it does look like it got a little bit damaged. We do have some that look perfectly fine. In fact, I think it's starting to snow again. We got into the teens last night. This is our first kind of hard freeze. We normally do not get weather like this. Like, we normally don't get snow at all. If we do get snow, this is kind of the amount that we usually get, but everything is kind of covered in a nice white thing. I'm coming out to give the rabbits some water. I forgot to bring their water bottles in last night and all of their water froze. So I had to come out this morning and give them a little bit of water, but I just brought one in, thawed it out. So I'm gonna bring it to them right now. Yesterday, I picked all of my beets and some more carrots. So I gave them all of the beet greens, so they are happy with it. Hey, Roxanne. Her name's Roxanne, because she is a Rex mix, so we just called her Roxanne. And they have nice little warm boxes in there with lots of hay. I'm probably going to top their hay up again, but I'm going to give them some water because they're probably thirsty. So last night we got into the teens. We're definitely having a cold snap right now, but I'm actually pretty happy that it decided to snow before it got into the teens. It put a nice little snow cover on top of my strawberries. The snow acts as a really good insulator. I unfortunately did not get out here and mulch my strawberries. I like to put a nice thick layer of hay over top of them, and I honestly just didn't. We got back from going out of town for Thanksgiving, and it was just kind of, I had so many things on my list to get done that I did not even remember to come out and mulch them, but they should be fine. This is my carrot bed. They're looking a little droopy right now, which is fine. They are perfectly fine. Let's actually just get one out here. Oh my gosh. That is hilarious. I wanted to pull one because I wanted to have it for lunch. But as you see, they are perfectly fine in the ground. Our ground, even though it got into the teens, it won't freeze because I believe in a couple of days we're going to be back into the 50s. So it's going to be fine. And that's usually how our winters go. We go from, like, we get these cold snaps and then it just all melts. We usually don't have snow stick here. I am coming out to check my spinach. Yesterday, I think I got a little overconfident and I was like, oh, my spinach is doing so good in this cold weather. And then we got this weather and I forgot to cover it last night. So I'm just checking to see how it fared last night and if we'll be able to have spinach. I really should probably end up covering it if it did survive. Let's see. Oh, it looks okay, actually. It looks good. Some of them are not happy, but some of them are actually okay. That's awesome. I will be able to have spinach. My garlic, again, I'm happy that we got that snow because that snow gives the garlic a nice insulation. I mulched it pretty good, so I'm not worried about it. Last year we got some snow too, and my garlic did perfect. My tomatoes, I don't know if you can see in the background, they finally died, which is fine. They had a good run. I was actually talking to somebody at church on Sunday, and she's a gardener as well, and we were just saying, like, it's such a blessing that we were able to even get to harvest in November because we just had such a warm, long fall, which was really, really nice. The one thing that we usually get to harvest year round here is thyme, oregano, and sage. These are pretty cold hardy and they last almost a whole year here. So that's my oregano. It's kind of covered in snow, but you can see it's beautiful green underneath there. So that'll be fine. Thyme, really, really hardy here. So I'll be able to harvest that all winter long. And then same with sage. Sage doesn't mind our cold weather here. So that's another thing. And then I have some parsley in here. Kind of took a little bit of a hit, but I think it will honestly bounce back. This carrot is just hilarious. Let's go inside because I'm starting to not be able to feel my fingers. Alrighty, we are inside now. I'm just gonna get my apron on before I forget because I want to have it on for our project today. I'm just gonna go put this in the garage. We have an insulated garage, but it's cold. So the garage is kind of the temperature of a refrigerator right now. So that is fine sitting in there. Well, I'm gonna get my canning book out. Have some recipes here that I've just kind of found online throughout the years, and I just print them off and put them in. Well, I don't print them off, I handwrite them. I've run out of printer ink, so I just opt to handwrite stuff instead of spending like $40 to buy a new printer cartridge. I don't do enough printing to justify the insane cost of ink. Okay, so what I'm looking for is a teriyaki recipe. I think I've mentioned it a couple weeks ago that we were getting low on teriyaki sauce, and I couldn't remember if I filmed it or not. I did film it, and I did actually in that video link the teriyaki video. I'm just gonna do a new video of it because there is a lot more new subscribers here, which is awesome. So I just figured I would do an updated video. So I'm just trying to find the recipe. I'm pretty sure it's in here. I'm hoping it is. Getting to the end and I'm not feeling hopeful. Yay! Yay, it is in here. Okay. So I actually wrote down where I got this recipe from. So I will leave this linked for you guys in the video description. It's a pretty quick and easy recipe and it's so delicious. I love marinating my jerky in it. But today we are also going to be canning up a whole bunch of beef. So in last week's video, I mentioned that I'm doing kind of a freezer clean out because we are getting half of a beef. I think it's coming in 2 weeks. So what I'm gonna do is take last year's beef that just cuts that we didn't really eat a lot of, and I'm actually gonna can it into stew beef or just beef chunks. Read the difference kind of between the hot packing and raw packing. We actually have a neighbor right across the street from us, and he is an avid deer hunter. He's really, really good at it, him and his wife, and they actually just got a couple of does, and he called me after they got them and he said, I had a friend that gave me a jar or a can of venison and I really want to learn how to do it. Can you show me? So they actually came over last week and we cubed all of the deer meat up and we just ended up raw packing it and canning it. I haven't had the opportunity to try it yet. He did give me 2 jars kind of for showing him how to do it. He also did give me a couple of the tenderloins, which is amazing. So we'll have some venison for the year. But anyways, so we raw packed that and I have been reading that apparently it is better to hot pack it. It kind of locks the flavors in a little bit. So what we're gonna do, I think today, it's a little bit of an extra step to hot pack it versus the raw. Because raw, you just take it, you put it in the jar and you can it. But hot packing, you have to sear it and you need to have a broth to can it in. It does say here also that if you are doing like a wild game, it is really good to can it in a tomato juice. I guess the tomatoes maybe help break up the gamey taste. I don't know. I have a really, really big Lodge cast iron skillet. I think it is under here. Yes, it is. It is. This is a number 2. It's bigger than my face. It's huge and it is super, super heavy. So we're gonna use that. Okay, so this is a pressure canning recipe, so I'll have to get my pressure canner out. The teriyaki sauce is a water bath recipe, so that one has to can for 15 minutes. So how about we get started on the, I try to do things efficiently and do kind of things in a good order that makes sense. I'm trying to think, because the 2 canners are really tight together on the stove. So I'm thinking maybe what we should do, because the beef is going to take 75 minutes to can because we're going to do it in pints. If you're doing quarts, it's 90 minutes to can. So I think what we'll do is we will do the teriyaki sauce first, just so that we can have it canning while we get the beef all prepared to get that in the pressure cooker. And that way I don't have 2 really huge canners on my stovetop at the same time. They just don't fit well together. A couple of nights ago, I got the beef out of the freezer that we're gonna can. So what I'm using is a bottom round roast. I'm using 1 chuck roast, and then I also have a top round roast. We just don't eat a lot of roast beef. I don't know why, we just don't eat it a lot. I think with the next cow, I'm probably gonna get more put into the ground than having these roasts because we just don't eat them a lot. We like steaks and ground beef and then just maybe a couple of roasts, just because we don't really eat a lot of roast beef, which is weird because it is delicious and I do love it. So we've decided this is gonna be the second project. I've been feeling kind of sluggish lately, and I think it's because with the holidays, I am eating a touch bit more sugar than I normally do. I've been really good with watching my amount of bread that I eat and the amount of sugar that I eat, like processed sugar. And I think with the holidays and stuff, I've just been eating more than normal. And I think that is aiding to my feeling sluggish. It definitely could be the cold weather. That is probably it, but I'm gonna blame it on the sugar. Sugar takes the rap for everything. Speaking of sugar, this recipe has a lot of it in it, so that's fine. We don't drink this. We don't eat it in obscene amounts. We just literally just lightly flavor stuff with it. So to make the teriyaki sauce, we need soy sauce, brown sugar, white vinegar, ginger, lemon juice, and some clear gel. I don't have clear gel. My local Amish store actually does not have it. Well, they may have it. I just haven't really found it. So I am going to use Thermoglow or Thermoflow, not Thermoglow. It's the same thing. It's a thickening agent. I think the original recipe that I actually found for this teriyaki sauce called for cornstarch. So the thing with cornstarch, it is not USDA recommended as a canning safe thickener. I guess it causes the food to thicken too much and then the heat can't penetrate it. Anyways, it is not recommended to can with cornstarch. But again, do your own research. We're not going to can with it. We're going to use the Thermoflow instead of the clear gel. Okay, so I need to go into my garage and get my soy sauce. Hopefully we have enough brown sugar. Yeah, I think we do. Yes, we definitely do. I just made a batch. Couldn't remember if I had made a batch or not. So we have enough of that. We need to get our ginger. I store my ginger in the fridge because it lasts almost indefinitely in the fridge, and it does not get freezer burn either. This is stuff I bought from Azure Standard. I just put it in the bag and leave it in the freezer. And then when I want to use it, it zests so easy when it is frozen. That is definitely a good tip. Keep it in the freezer. It doesn't go bad and it just lasts forever, and it is really easy to zest. So it calls for 4 tablespoons of ginger. So we'll get 1 of these out. Actually, I want to keep it in the freezer for now because I want it to be frozen because it's easier to use. Okay, lemon juice. We got the Thermoflow already. Let's go get the vinegar and the soy sauce. Actually, I'm not going to be using soy sauce. I'm going to be using liquid aminos. I have made this in the past using coconut aminos as well, and you can use any of those. It works perfectly fine. I'm just going to be using this vinegar. It has 5% acidity, so it is perfectly safe to use. I don't know if you would want to sub white vinegar out for apple cider vinegar in this. And normally I definitely am all about recommending swaps because that's one way to save money is just using what you have available. In this situation, I honestly don't think it would be good with apple cider vinegar. I think I would stick to the white vinegar. I don't think this is going to be enough, so I'm going to grab my other one. So we have 2 of them here. I just bought this one on Azure Standard a couple months ago. It's so much cheaper to buy the gallon and it lasts really long time in the fridge, even after you open it. So I just go ahead and buy a gallon. Okay, so we have all of our stuff out. I usually like to do this in 1/2 pint jars because that's pretty much like a serving that we'll use. If I'm making like a chicken teriyaki, 1/2 pint size is good for us. It's usually just the 2 of us eating, so we don't usually make really big meals, so 1/2 pint is perfectly fine. Obviously, if you have a larger family, I would can it in a little bit bigger size. Then I got my lids, our water bath canner. I'm gonna get this filled up with some water. And then I'm also gonna get my jars in here. When I put them in, I just kind of like to check the tops to make sure that there's no cracks on them or chips. Alrighty, get this turned on. We have 10 half-pint jars in here. The recipe says that this makes 4 half-pint jars. So we're gonna double it. So I'm just gonna put 10 in there just to be on the safe side. Again, I always say better to have more than not enough. My house smells amazing right now, guys. I wanna show you what I've been doing the last 2 days. This right here is what I call a simmering pot. It has some oranges, orange peelings, cinnamon, allspice, berries, cloves. I don't burn scented candles in my house. The smell of the artificial fumes really give me a bad headache, but I still love to have my house smelling, you know, like warm and cozy. So one thing that I have discovered is simmering pots. So I will put stuff in a quart of water, just put it on a stovetop. Then I bring it up to a boil. Once it gets to a boil, I just put it on the lowest possible temperature and I just let it simmer all day, and it fills the whole house up with just this beautiful winter smell. In the summer, you can definitely do it with things like lemons, stuff like that. That adds like a little bit of a scent to your house. But I find especially in the winter that this is a really good thing because I don't have the windows open. I don't have fresh air coming in constantly. So I really like to have, you know, just something to kind of freshen the air up in the house. So I do that and it's just, oh, I love it. And it's so easy because I'm eating oranges right now because they're in season and they're cheap to buy. So I have orange peelings and so I just throw them in this pot and then I just let it simmer. And every morning I wake up and I turn it on the low heat and then it just simmers throughout the day. One thing I love about canning when it is cold outside is that it heats the house up. It's just, now is the time to do canning projects. We're gonna get started making the teriyaki sauce. I am gonna double this batch because when I'm doing a project, I kind of like to do a whole bunch at a time. That way I don't have to do it as often. I can do it kind of once a year. And we don't go through that much teriyaki sauce, so this is gonna be enough for the year. All right, so to get started, we're gonna add 4 cups of soy sauce. Original recipe calls for 2 cups. Again, guys, I'm gonna leave this linked for you in the video description so that you can have access to the original recipe. That was only 2 cups left in there, so we'll open the new one up. So I have a nice medium-sized heavy bottom stock pot here. So I'm just gonna add that soy sauce, or in my case, liquid aminos, to the pot. We need to add 4 cups of brown sugar. This is only a ½ cup scoop, so I'm gonna have to do quite a bit of scoops. All right, there's 1 cup. Alrighty, there's the unhealthy amount of brown sugar. So we put in 4 cups. So we'll need to add 2 cups of white vinegar. Original recipe says 1 cup. Add that to the pot. All right, now we need to get the ginger back out. I am normally not super picky about the skins. I just kind of grade them in and it doesn't really make a big difference to me. But I'm gonna try to get some of them off. We need 8 tablespoons of ginger in this, so I'm gonna grate it over top of a bowl. I don't like to add too much ginger because it's such a strong flavor that if you add too much, it can go wrong really fast. And I'm gonna get some peelings in there and I'm just gonna be okay with it. I love this little zester. I've had this zester, I think, for 16 years. I love it. This is what it is. See if I can link it for you guys. I think I got this at Bath and Body Works. Like, honestly, I think it's been at least 16 years. One of my favorite chefs is Ina, I forget how to pronounce her last name, the Barefoot Contessa. She is honestly one of my favorite chefs, and I have been watching her since my daughter was young, and she's now in her mid-20s. So I've been watching her for a really, really long time. And she used one of these microplanes in one of her recipes. And when I seen her using it, I'm like, I need to get that. I was definitely influenced by it. So I went out and bought it from Bath and Body Works. And it honestly, it's amazing. It is an amazing tool. It makes zesting so easy. Now I am going to peel some of these skins off because they're kind of getting caught up in the zester. So we'll just get some of them off so it zests a little bit easier. But you guys can see how easy it is to zest when it's frozen. It's night and day difference. That should be a good amount. That is a lot of ginger. What I'm going to do with all of these peelings, I'm going to take my simmer pot that I've been having going for the last, 3 days, maybe 4 days. Just add that to it. Just stir it around a little bit. So now we'll have some fresh ginger. I'm actually going to top this up with some water also. There we go. And then I'll get it back on the heat once I'm done canning. Actually, I could probably get it on the heat in this back burner right here. I barely ever use these back burners because they're little tiny ones. These are my favorite burners. I found with as I age, I definitely have a favorite burner. That's like something that comes with age, I guess. You get favorite burners. Turn this back one on to about a 2. We'll get that boiling. Alrighty, we'll add all of this ginger into here. Ready, and then the last thing we need to do is add our lemon juice, and we are going to add 4 tablespoons. We are going to get this turned on to about a medium high, and then we're going to bring it to a boil. I just want to keep kind of stirring it because you don't want your sugar to burn on the bottom. You just want to make sure that all of that sugar gets dissolved. Here's what it looks like. We are to a full boil here, so we're going to turn down the heat to low, and we are going to let this boil away or simmer away for 20 minutes. And then after the 20 minutes, that's when we add our clear gel or whatever you're using to thicken it. So we're just going to set the timer for 20 minutes. That sauce still has 8 more minutes to go. So what I've been doing in the meantime is I'm just taking our beef and I'm getting it all chopped up. I'm trying to be efficient with my time. So I'm trying to get this chopped up while that is doing its simmer. So I chopped up the chuck roast already and one of the roasts. So I'm just doing the very last one. Now the recipe does recommend to try to get most of the fat off of it. So I've just been cutting like really big pieces of fat off. It does say that some of it is perfectly fine to keep in it. In fact, it actually does give flavor to the canned beef if you leave it in. So we are going to leave just a little bit in there, but not too much because I don't want there to be too much fat because then that compromises seals. So I'm cutting them into fairly big pieces like this, about 2-inch pieces. I'm worried that if I actually cut them too small that they're going to end up drying out during the canning process. And I've canned a stew before and I didn't like it because the beef was really dry in it. So I'm trying to have them in bigger pieces in hopes that they don't get overly dry during the canning process. And it could just been me learning how to use a new recipe back then. That's why they got dry. I don't know. I don't know if it was the recipe's fault or my fault. Most likely it was my fault because I was new at canning when I tried to do the beef stew. So we have a minute, well, actually we have 30 seconds left on this timer. It's reduced down quite a bit. I'm just gonna give it another stir here. So we have to add the clear gel now, or in my case, we're gonna add the ThermaFlow. So recipe calls for 2 tablespoons. We're gonna do the 4. This is not something that's been mentioned in the recipe, but I'm gonna do it because if you just dump this in like that, you are most likely going to get clumps throughout your whole sauce. So what I like to do is just take a couple of tablespoons of the liquid and just add it to the clear gel, Thermagel, air, whatever you're using. This is also how I make it if like I'm gonna thicken a sauce, like, and I'm using cornstarch. That's what I will do. So I'm probably gonna take, I would say about 1/4, maybe 1/3 of this cooking liquid. And I need to get a fork, and we're just gonna make a slurry with it. So it's just pretty much a paste. What I'm trying to do by doing this is just getting the clumps out, and that way when I'm adding it to this pot, I'm not adding it clumpy. I'm adding a nice clear liquid. As you can see how there's clumps in this. I'm gonna add a little bit more of this cooking liquid. And once I start to see the clumps coming out, then I will add it into the other sauce. Getting a spatula, just making sure everything's coming down off the sides. That looks pretty smooth now. There are just a couple little tiny clumps in it, but that's fine. Okay, now we're gonna take this liquid and we're just going to slowly stir it into here. So it suggests to bring the heat back up to a medium and stir it until it is thickened. And once it's thickened, then we're going to get to the canning. Usually takes a couple minutes to start to thicken up. What normally happens in this situation is I feel that it's not thickening up quick enough, and then I end up adding more cornstarch or arrowroot or whatever I'm adding to thicken it. And then I end up with like bricks because I've added way too much to it, and it completely hardens once it does get nice and thick and then cools down. So don't jump the gun and add more. Give it a minute to just kind of do its thing. Okay, we're gonna get these jars out of here, boiling again. So I'm just gonna kind of keep stirring it down. I'm gonna turn it down a little bit because this burner tends to get a little hot quick. It's not as thick as I really would like it, but I'm just gonna be content with that. I'm gonna take it off of the heat and then we're gonna get it jarred up. For this, we need to leave a 1/4 inch of headspace. Next up, we need to get these jar tops really clean because there is some stuff that kind of dripped over when we were canning them because I'm a messy canner. So I'm just taking a little bit of white vinegar and a dish rag, and I'm just cleaning the tops of the jars just to make sure that they do not have anything sticky that would compromise the seal at all. So the recipe called for 4 half pints. We ended up doubling it. So we got 6 half pints, well, almost 7. This one's not quite full. I'm just gonna actually leave this cool down, and then we'll end up having this with supper tonight. So I'm not gonna can it because it's not at the 1/4 inch headspace. Now that I have all of the tops clean, I'm gonna get my lids on, and then we're gonna put our rings on to fingertip tight. And we'll get them put into the water bath canner. Okay, get the heat turned back up. They are covered with well over 1 inch of water. In fact, I probably should take some of this water out. I'm going to take some of the water out just because it does not need to be that full, and it will take longer to come to a boil, and it's just not necessary. You want to have at least 1 inch or 2 of water above the jars. And we have about 10. Good, we'll get the lid on. We will bring it to a full rolling boil. Once this gets to a full rolling boil, we're gonna set our timer for 15 minutes. And then after the 15 minutes, we take the lid off, take it off the heat, let it rest for 5 minutes, and then we take them out. We're gonna get started on our beef. So we already have all of the beef cubed up into about the 1 to 2 inch cubes. Next up, we are going to get it seared on all sides. Again, this is not necessary. You can definitely take this stuff and just put it right into the jars and can it that way. You do not need to do this step. I'm just doing it because I've heard that it makes the beef taste better. So we're gonna do that. One thing I just remembered I had to do was get my jars heated up. We're gonna use these Azure jars. This is the first time I'm canning with them, so I'm excited to see how they do. I got them a couple months ago, and I think they were on sale. That's why I ended up getting them. So I'm excited to see how they work for canning because I've heard really, really good things about them. So we'll see. So I'm back here in my pantry, and I'm just looking for some beef broth. So we'll grab 2 of these. We actually might need 3. We'll grab a little one. So we're gonna have to wait until this canner is done, which actually I think it's now at a rolling boil. Yep, we're at a full rolling boil, so set that timer for 15 minutes. We've got our big skillet that put on the oven. So what I was saying is we're gonna have to wait for that to finish its canning before we can get the broth heated up. So the jars are heating up right now. We're gonna get my cast iron skillet hot. I'm gonna use tallow to cook this in. This is just a whole bunch of tallow that I just rendered. I made this most amazing face cream with it. I'm gonna try it out for a couple months and see how I like it. And then if it's really good, when I get my beef order, I will show you guys how I made it, because it's just, it makes my skin feel like butter. It's amazing. It's so soft. I love it. But I did save some of the tallow for cooking with, so we're gonna use that to fry this in. I'm really trying to be more aware about what I'm using to cook stuff in. Oil is really expensive. I kind of did a little bit of an inventory just because I want to kind of get ready for the pantry challenge in January and February. And I realized that my oil is getting low, but the whole purpose of the pantry challenge is to use things that you normally wouldn't use. I just rendered, I think, 6 half pints of tallow. That is perfect for cooking with. So during the pantry challenge, I'm going to try to be more aware of what I'm using to fry stuff in and use my tallow, because it's perfectly safe and it is definitely perfectly healthy to use this to fry stuff in. And I already have it available. So whole purpose of the pantry challenge, use what you have and use it up. So perfect excuse. We're going to get some tallow in this frying pan. Probably gonna add about a tablespoon in here. This frying pan is not seasoned very well. I really need to re-season it. It just is, stuff tends to stick, and it's just because it's not been seasoned good. This is a new Lodge, and all of my other cast irons that I use, they have all been handed down from family members, but they're all really good and seasoned. And this one, because it's a brand new one, it's not been loved and seasoned. So I'm really gonna have to be more aware of just making sure I'm frying stuff in it to get it good and seasoned. And so what we'll do now is we will take our beef pieces and we are just going to sear them on all sides. We're not trying to really cook the beef. We're just searing it lightly on all sides. The canning book actually says to pre-cook meat until rare by roasting, stewing, or browning in a small amount of fat. And it says to add 1 teaspoon of salt to the jar. I don't normally add salt when I'm canning things, but we are going to add it in this situation. I'm gonna get a bowl out to put the meat in after we browned it. So we just want it to look like that on all sides. I'm getting a nice facial while I'm standing here. This steam is blowing in my face and fogging up my glasses. Which I need them on to see if the meat is seared. These are all done. Let's get them out. They've rested the 5 minutes. All right, we'll let these rest for 24 hours. We got all of the meat browned up. We couldn't get the broth started anyways until we were finished frying it because the canner has to warm up. So I have my pressure canner here. I put the appropriate amount of water in it. To know the appropriate amount of water, just look at your canner's manual. I believe you could probably find the information online as well. Mine, there's a fill line, so I just fill it up to that line. I think it's 2 quarts of water. I just use the fill line. So I have my beef broth here. There's some fat in it. I'm just gonna take this fat out. I don't really want that extra fat in there. So I'm gonna start with 2 quarts and I'm just gonna bring this to a boil. While we're waiting for that to boil, we're gonna get these jars filled up. So the recipe recommends using 1 teaspoon of salt per quart size jar. So we're gonna put in ½ a teaspoon and we'll just add it to this many jars because I don't know how many jars we're gonna get. I have 12 heated up. Hopefully that'll be enough. And we're gonna take our seared meat and we're just gonna stuff it into the jars. Again, these jars are hot, so. Everything needs to be the same temperature or close to the same temperature. We're just gonna put them in till we have 1 inch headspace. Okay, our broth is boiling, so we're gonna take it off the heat. And then we're just gonna top these jars up with it. And again, we're looking for 1 inch headspace. I will come and debubble this, and then obviously I'll have to add more liquid if I need it. You don't have to use beef broth for this. The recipe also recommends meat drippings, water, or tomato juice. So when it's talking about the meat drippings, I'll show you. See at the bottom of this bowl, all of the liquid, that is meat drippings. And I might use some of this in it because that is flavor juice right there, flavor juice. And so now what we'll do is we will just debubble. So we're going to take all of the air bubbles that are potentially trapped in the bottom. We're going to just try to get them out. And just make sure that you are keeping that 1 inch headspace after you debubble. You may have to come in and top up with some more liquid. And then like we did with the teriyaki sauce, we just want to make sure that we come in and clean the tops of these really good so that there's not any pieces of meat or broth or fat or anything like that on the top. And we will get our lids on. Get our bands to fingertip tight. Actually gonna take the lid off of this for a minute before I put these in because that water is way hotter than these jars and I do not want to break them. So I'm gonna let that water just cool down for a minute. We have a little broth left over, so I'm just gonna put it in a jar and then put it back in the fridge. Probably only needed 1 quart of broth to do these. We got 8 pints in total. I'm using this canner for a reason because I can double stack in this because we're doing pints. So I will be able to get all of them in here in one load. In fact, they don't even need to double stack. They all fit on the bottom. Perfect. Righty, we're gonna get the lid on and we will get this come into pressure. Once this comes full to pressure, we're going to pressure can it for 75 minutes because we're doing quarts. Or sorry, 75 minutes because we're doing pints. If you're doing quarts, it's 90 minutes. So that's gonna be it for today's video. Thank you guys so much for coming along with me on this snowy, cold fall day, because we're not quite winter yet. We're technically still fall, but I mean, it's pretty much winter out there. So thanks for joining me guys in the kitchen. I hope you enjoyed the video and I hope you guys have a great day or night whenever you're watching this, and I will see you on the next video. Bye guys.